One thing that jumped out to me is like, I mean, obviously there's some talk about, net zero and, school and like building municipal construction and renovation projects, but there's really no mention of solar panels, which is such a huge conversation, especially during election season. And so hopefully not just during election season is what I'm getting at. And so I don't know, I think that's something we should be talking more about, like how do we drive that forward? Because I don't know what necessarily the holdup is. Like people talk about whether the roof's ready for it or not. They'll talk about whether we're owning them or not. Like, let's just pick a path or pick multiple paths and start moving. So
There's a bill that just was passed the House that still has to be on, go through the Senate and then to get to the governor's office, but it has significant amount of issues around solar and municipalities. And it also created the first municipal light organization for energy in 100 years. So there's a lot of things going on and that will, if that bill passes, some of it good, some of it bad, but it will affect a lot of the conversation we just had, especially about renewable energy and transmission.
I want to respond to that and just say, we have talked about solar a lot as this committee, and I don't remember off the top of my head why we didn't include it here, except for it as one of our goals. Does anyone remember that?
Because it kind of boiled down to money.
Yeah, I think that, and we knew we're in a tough money year.
Yeah, we're very curious as a committee over the issue of the Farley building and what's happening there, because that solarization of that Farley building would key the whole area being a net microgrid. And then who owns the network after the project's over? All kinds of questions, but those have come up in this committee, but they just weren't reflected in this report.
I know it's different for maybe, I don't know, maybe it is different, maybe it is different. Like, I know so many people and friends who have good houses for it that are putting it up at no cost. Now I get that, like, they don't necessarily own the infrastructure. There may be some downsides I'm not always seeing, but like.
We can, so something I'm thinking about would be maybe to invite Lincoln Lynch, Director of Finance and Administration for the schools, and ask what I think he is.
Can I make one more comment here?
And all of the solar panel projects.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just schools though.
Right, sure.
I think our government was counting on the Inflation Reduction Act being around a lot longer than it is now. It was due to the current administration. So a lot of this could have been put off, not necessarily on the hot button. And then the regime changed and all the incentives to owning the thing by municipalities were largely erased unless it was already in process. So that has altered the whole solar conversation tremendously.
Can I ask you a question, Sean?
Is it about solar?
Yes,
Okay.
staying on the same topic. No ADHD right now. This is what you might probably say, but do you know, is there a wider plan? Solar plan has the city, or have you looked at bundling, bids, to help move this forward? I'm sure you have a lot to say, so I'll just let you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. I think so. We looked at doing kind of like a phased procurement for multiple, like, taking our portfolio of eligible buildings. Let's go out and kind of get the best pricing that we can. I think some of the challenges are, I think, as mentioned, it really comes down to underlying infrastructure, whether that's ready to support it. There definitely are, especially for you'll hear about that for private homeowners, right? You can get solar, we'll do your roof for free. This is a great opportunity for you to do it. I think the challenge we see is using a school building as an example. The solar can bring in a lot of value, whether, it's a power purchase agreement, you're owning it outright. If you're owning it outright, you're paying for the capital cost up front. If that building needs a roof, the projects that we're seeing, and I don't want to speak for, Lincoln Lynch and team, but, just from my discussions, it's not just replacing the membrane over the roof, you're doing a lot of structural stuff. The cost of those projects are in the millions, and it on an individual basis can dwarf kind of the benefits of the solar. That being said, it still needs to be done. It's not like it's a negative that gets paired with the solar. You need to do the roof. And so it makes sense to put on solar. And so I think the approach has been, especially for Farley, that's about 75% of the way through the design process, which is a really unique project accounting for like solar, battery storage, backup generation for the facility. That's in process. And then I'll just comment too, because it's a great point Larry brought up about tax credits, right? Like I think that's been a huge thing that going into that legislation coming out was like, okay, the city is eligible for these investment tax credits that it wasn't really eligible for before, and this is adding a huge amount of value. But now those are going away. And so we are looking at for facilities that are ready, how can we do that? So for example, we just completed the roof of the DPW headquarters. So that's kind of, I think those projects are the ones in this interim period, while it's still available, we are looking at and seeing how we can advance things. I think ultimately for buildings where the roofs are not available, or for example, we anticipate there being a strong need for stormwater infrastructure upgrades. It's tough to kind of slot those in after, you do a major project there. And so it's just trying to find the time. And I'll say this too, past projects we've done at the schools really have been focused on, like, there was a stormwater upgrade that was approved through capital planning. All right, this is the time. That happened at Brophy. That was actually one of the huge things. It's like, we got to get this done for a permit there. This is the time to put in the canopy as they're working on the underground infrastructure. So I think that's been our approach so far. I think we started in a place where it's like, let's start putting our buildings in these categories of like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I think we found it was so difficult because getting certainty as to like when exactly roofs might be funded, and then knowing that you could go and do the solar at that point. I think we're going to try to bundle what's ready now and see what we can advance while we have some of this, federal funding opportunity.
Donna, did you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, we have in our annual reports, we have often talked about having parking lots and new roofs be solar ready. So I'm not sure why it wasn't in our goals, because it certainly has always been. So that's thank you for bringing that to our attention, because I think it should be added in whatever context we've had it before. But also the climate action plan. I mean, doesn't that have as a part of our plan more solarization, Sean? Like, isn't that something we're working on even in the net zero plan? Like, I've just a question, that we're always working towards this in these other larger scale, big picture projects.
Yeah. So definitely in our climate action plan for our actions in the energy category, of course, like adding solar to municipal facilities. There's also some resiliency objectives that tie in with this, like how can we develop resilience hubs in the community that use clean energy, solar, battery storage, things like that. And then I guess that's a great point, Donna. Also the decarbonization planning, right? We'll provide some of that longer term outlook along with the electrification. How do we plan for clean energy projects in the long term? So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Sean. Other questions, comments, priorities? Things to say?
Yeah, Donna.
Yeah, so I mean, I love the ideas that have come from you and Mary Kate, lots of really passionate ideas that I would say that we are so open to hearing what else you think we could be focused on and working on. So I just want to put that out there as an invitation to, share with all of us or one of us anything that you think we should bring forward to be working on as a committee. We're here for you to do that.